Now we're going to take a look at the hot swap browser capabilities within Ableton Live, and this gives us the potential to change presets within any of our instruments or devices, and also to actually change waveforms within some of the synthesizers. To see how this works, we're going to pull in some empty devices. I'm going up to the device browser, opening up the instrument group. I'm going to start with a Simpler, then an Impulse drum machine, and a full drum rack. I'm going to go ahead and delete these other tracks here, and we'll start with a Simpler. So I'm going to arm it for recording, and as I play my keyboard, we hear no sound because there's no waveform in here. We're going to go into hot swap mode here. You can see it has the same icon as there. By coming from here, I'm saying let's go into hot swap and look for presets for this current device, which is the Simpler. And I'm going to come down to the synth category and then the bass folder, and notice we're staying in hot swap mode. I simply double click on a preset and it's loaded in with the waveform and all the settings. Now notice we're still in hot swap mode. I can double click another preset and check it out. And again. So for this experiment, I'm going to go ahead and go with bass detector. And then I'm going to exit hot swap. Now we can do that here or down here, either one. Now additionally, within the Simpler we have a waveform here that we can hot swap just the waveform. So that pulsing sound can be now used as a format with a different waveform underneath. Here it is originally. Now put a different waveform in there. So we keep that pulsing design of this preset, but we're changing out the waveform to find different sounds that might work for us. So we see the power of the hot swap already. Let's move over now to our impulse. I'm going to exit and come to impulse. And down here again we have our squares for each of the different samples we might play back. But when we pull back or engage the impulse drum machine from here, we're pulling it in without a preset, so it's empty. Now notice each square has its own hot swap box. If I activate it here in the first one, it's commonly used for a bass drum sound, so it's looking now for kick drum sounds. And we can audition these, we can hear them. Okay, I'll pull that out for a big kick drum. Let's go to the next square, activate its hot swap. It's assuming I want a snare. I could listen. Okay, so I'll pull that over. Let's hot swap again. I'll come down a couple and hot swap here. And it's assuming I'm looking for a tom drum. I can pull that over and drop it. Or another way to do it is simply double click as we've seen before. Let's grab another tom. Double clicking, and it's in place and we see the name change. So hot swapping waveforms works both for the impulse and for the Simpler. Let's move on over to the drum rack now, and again we have several squares and each one is ready to have its own drum sound. If I double click on that, we can drop anything right in on that. But let's go now to our main browser, come to waveforms, and grab any waveform we might find. It doesn't have to be a drum sound, I can just drag it right there. And now we've got, and we can hot swap here, go into different categories. Now notice it's retaining the original sample until I double click. And there we are. Okay, so we can hot swap within the drum rack, within the Simpler, and within the impulse. Now let's look at what happens if we pull in an audio effect. Go back to devices, pull in something like a reverb, and drop it in place. And notice we have the hot swap icon here. As soon as I activate that, it goes to the reverb section for us automatically, and we can get to several presets. So when I double click it comes into play. Let's switch over now to our impulse and add a reverb in there. And we'll hear this more clearly now. Swap that out. Double click. And that gets out of the way of the lows more. You can try a different one just by double clicking. So you see that hot swap gives us a quick access to the preset settings for any device, again any device, whether it's an audio instrument, an audio effect, or a MIDI effect, and to the waveforms within many of our devices. Okay, that concludes our look at all the browsers.